Hey, Intro to Algebra, make sure that you've tried these problems once already, and then while you're watching this video, make sure to take really good notes, and in your second attempt, you can earn 100%. Just a reminder that all your notes you're allowed to use on your final progress check on Wednesday. Okay, when we're solving problems with fractions, a lot of times it's really nice to go ahead and multiply just by the reciprocal. And the reason we do that is because when we multiply by the reciprocal, that makes 1. So over here I have 1x, which is what I want. And then over here, you can cancel if you want, or you can just multiply it out. If we just multiply it out, we'll see that this is negative 60 over 3. So we get negative 20. Probably the first thing I want to do here is get rid of that divide by 4. So what I'm going to do, the opposite of divide by 4 is multiply by 4, or in other words, 4 over 1. We'll do that on both sides. And then I'm left with 3 minus w equals negative 8. If I subtract 3 from both sides, then I've got negative w equals negative 11. Divide by negative 1 on both sides, or multiply by negative 1 on both sides. W equals 11. Before we get going too far, it's easiest to simplify both sides. On this side, I'll probably distribute. I'll get negative 6x plus 3. Make sure you realize that negative times a negative makes plus 3. And on this side, I've got 2x plus 11. I'll go ahead and add 6x to both sides. And now I have 8x. And if I subtract 11 from both sides, I get negative 8. 8x equals negative 8. And if I divide both sides by 8, then I've got x equals negative 1. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to simplify first. I'll go ahead and subtract 5x from both sides. Well, that gives me negative 8 equals positive 3. This is not true. So that means that no matter what I plug into this equation, it's not going to work. No solution. Be really careful and make sure that you notice that this negative 2 is the thing that we're distributing. Not a 2, but a negative 2. Now I have like terms on this side. I've got a 3 and an 8. When I add those together, I get 11. So I've got 11 minus 6x equals 11 minus 6x. Now notice that's the same thing on both sides. So no matter what I plug in for x, it's going to be true all the time. I could also just kind of see that by adding 6x to both sides, and then I've got 11 equals 11. That is true, so that means that all real numbers, anything I plug in, is going to make this equation work. Now, this is no longer just solving for a value, but solving for a variable. This says solve for y, so I'm going to rewrite the equation and circle y. And that reminds me that y is the thing I'm solving for. The first thing I'll do is add 3x to both sides. Later, I'll deal with getting rid of that 4. But now I've got 4y equals 3x plus 12. I've got to divide both sides by 4. Everything on both sides. So now I've got 3/4 x plus 3. It's letter A. All right, this time I'm solving for t. So the r and the t are being multiplied together. The opposite of multiplication is division. So now I've got t equals d divided by r. And I have to be really careful here. That, in fact, is letter C. All right, yesterday, I think that one of the more commonly missed one was evaluate. So we're going to practice and evaluate again. Wherever I see A, I'm going to put negative 4. First, I'm just going to put some blanks. So negative 4 squared minus 2 times negative 4. And then B is just 6. Okay, let's be really careful here. The negative 4 is in parentheses, so that means negative 4 times negative 4. And 2 negatives here, that makes plus 8. So this is 16 plus 8 over 6. And if I simplify that, I'm going to get 24 over 6. Which simplifies to be just 4. All right, now we've got some inequalities. So remember, the only thing that's really different about inequalities is when you divide by a negative, you have to switch the inequality sign. So if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, switch the inequality sign. Other things you might want to add to your notes here for this is that if you've got a sign like this or like this, that gives us a closed circle. And a less than or a greater than, those give us open circles. So here we're going to have a closed circle. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides because that's a positive 3. That negative sign goes with the 2. Now, when I divide by a negative 2, I've got to swap that inequality sign. It's going to change directions and be in this direction now. So now I have t is greater than or equal to 1, and that is letter C. Notice it's a closed circle there. One more inequality. I'll add t to both sides to get all the variables on one side. So now I have 4t plus 2 is greater than or equal to negative 26. Subtract 2 from both sides. 4t is greater than or equal to negative 28. I'll divide both sides by 4. I'm not dividing by a negative, so I'm not going to swap the inequality sign. I'm going to be left with t is greater than or equal to negative 7. And that is letter A. Also, make sure you've got great notes. Do one more try if you need to get 100% on this, and save those notes for Wednesday.